I normally do not go to this level with planning items, but this is of interest. Note how the SIG councillors take a completely different view to a small group of existing residents on what often seems like imaginary risks, despite staff comments on facts. Yet in the Bunnings redevelopment, where you have concrete dust, not a problem, they are very inconsistent, and it appears to me it is linked to capture by current residents who they do not want to put offside, i.e. lose votes. This is looking like the hero for the battler when you have a small-scale developer. If it is a large developer, then you are on your own. There is clearly nonsense in the Patricia's save the children from cars, when at the end of Wells Place is acres of Vic Zealand Reserve, a perfect place to play ball or frisbee. The gross exaggeration of Patricia just does not stand up to facts. Why would you take your kids around the block when you can walk straight across Wells Place, over Explorer Boulevard to acres of playing field? This will be a big loss for council in the Land and Environment Court, the very scare technique used by Lou Kazmiri to abandon regulation and planning. Seeing Bob Proudfoot trying to get staff to collude with him to make a bad decision against their recommendation is almost sickening. Same for Councillor Clancy, as if she is complaining about the rule of law and the risk to her when she makes a bad decision. They truly are appalling councillors.
I was sent a draft motion. I wanted to speak in quite a lot of depth to this, and I'm not going to go too far into it because the deputation that we received by Mr. Mark Wells was very good, and I believe that we should be supporting his cause, and I have an alternative draft motion here that I believe governance have as well, that I will read out to start with. That council determine the modification application to amend the approved subdivision of Lot 22 DP 717232, including relocation of proposed reserve from Wells Place to Shoalhaven Heads Road frontage by way of a refusal for the reasons outlined below. And there are 5 reasons that have been outlined that I agree with. And are they going to come up on the screen? Yep. They're up, yep. So essentially, that the proposed location of the public open space is within the mapped flood fringe and is therefore not fit for purpose. The proposed development may have an adverse social and economic impact as a result of flooding impacts on neighbouring properties. 3 and 4, yep. And then the 5th one is the proposal is not in the public interest given the long-standing expectation of the local community.
Can I just call for a seconder?
Yep.
Councillor Cox.
As I said, I have lots of examples here of why this shouldn't be, this new motion should be supported. But in the interest of time and given, as I said, the deputation was very extensive, I will not go into any further detail unless I find I need to in my right of reply.
Thank you.
Could I ask a question to staff, through you please, in regards to the proposed motion 2, where it talks about the adverse social and economic impact as a result of flooding on neighbouring properties. Could I ask how moving the reserve has an impact on flooding to the neighbouring properties, please?
Through you, Madam Mayor. As was addressed in the presentation earlier by the consultant representing the application, it's likely that the actual flood risk will be less because there's less fill occurring as a result of this proposed solution.
I think I have 1,000 more questions now. So what you're suggesting is where one of the reasons we're giving for refusal is the flooding impact, but it would actually be less impact by moving the reserve from Wells to Shoalhaven Heads Road frontage. Is that what, can I clarify that's what you're suggesting?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes.
Okay, I find that really hard to then put in as a reason, particularly now, right or wrong, that we have that on record, that our staff don't believe that. I think we would have to exclude part 2 for that reason. I've gone back and forward on this probably 1,000 times, so I have some sympathy with what is being trying to be done here. But I just want to make sure that we have, I guess, airtight justifications and reasons. Could we still see the proposed amendments, because this is the first time that we're seeing it?
I'll just refer to the CEO.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mayor. Councillors, this is an incredibly difficult position for staff, and we'll always aim to assist councillors with those reasons, but the staff recommendation is the staff recommendation. Any refusal that's issued by council must have valid reasons for refusal, and those reasons should indeed be reasons that accord with what I would call adequate planning grounds, so that there is the best opportunity for us to represent council in the Land Environment Court should the decision be contested. The reasons for refusal here do have to reference the Act. They have to reference adequate planning grounds. That doesn't necessarily mean that they are the view of the assessing officers or the staff. They are just reasons that council should give to give the organisation the best possible legal standing in the event of an appeal.
Councillor Tribe.
Additional question, please, through you, Madam Mayor. I know one of the concerns that the Deputy has raised is around traffic, and it was actually, I think, in the report, in submissions, this was raised, and there was a comment made from staff that it was the traffic implications were potentially less, given that with the move, that it was there would be less cars because less cars driving to any proposed residents as opposed to those driving to a reserve who'd be driving from another angle. Could we just get, I guess, that elaborated on? Because there's, as far as I'm aware, that's a comment that's not based on any study. That's just a view that would happen, that there would be less car numbers based on that redirection. Can I ask what that is based on, whether those traffic movements, why that comment was made, and I guess, is there any anecdotal evidence to suggest that people are walking to the reserve? Perhaps that was why it was made, that people are walking to the reserve, not driving.
So,
Director Usher to comment on that. I think we probably need further clarification, Councillor, just on some of those elements.
Yeah, sure. Traffic flow was mentioned as a concern with the change for the reserve and driving particularly down that narrow road. It was suggested when that was raised, so it's in the attachments and in the table of the submission table, that item was raised about traffic, and the response, council's staff's comment was that there would potentially be less traffic movements with the change of location of the reserve. And I just want some background as to why, because as far as I'm aware, no traffic studies have been done. But I guess I want to understand, is that because people driving to the reserve will no longer be using that road, and that's why it's been suggested?
Through you, Madam Mayor. There were a few comments made earlier in some of the deputations around increase in traffic and other impacts as a result of the change. I think any change in traffic or other impacts are going to be quite minor. We're looking at the same number of allotments that were proposed. The only real change is with the location of where the public open space is. It could be assumed that there may be some traffic at the moment to that public open space. It's unlikely. It's a very small pocket park. It's not going to be attracting a lot of use. I don't think there's going to be a major impact in traffic either way as a result of the change, or in fact any of those other issues that were being discussed in some of the deputations.
Councillor Tribe, you're right. So I'll go to Councillor Cox.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. And this may be directed through you to Director Usher. From obviously both for and against, I took some notes, and I just referred to Mark Wells' comments were that part of the issue was there was no flood management plan, so if you can just confirm that, drainage, and there was no environmental study around that, and also with the additional lots, because of where the reserve is, moving it from A to B wasn't that simplistic. It was a case of then there would be waste bins on the road, and if you've been to Wells Place, it's actually, it's a very narrow bandwidth up there. So when it comes to traffic movements, obviously just talking about garbage bins and maybe emergency vehicles, I think that was what he was alluding to. So perhaps you can comment on those items, please.
I can see the staff deliberating. I think they'll just reinforce the point that the modification is looking at adding one additional lot to that particular local road in lieu of the reserve that is currently mooted to go there through the previous approval. Director Usher, I'll let you comment on that further.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, the CEO's comments are exactly right. As mentioned before, there's no net increase overall in the number of lots proposed. So there's not going to be an adverse impact in terms of number of bins or the like on the road as a result of removing the open space and relocating it. You've got one additional lot, residential lot, potentially impacting on that street.
So any further, Councillor Cox?
No, thank you.
So Councillor Norris. Councillor Norris, any further?
No, thank you.
Councillor Wilkins.
Madam Mayor, yes, a question through you, first of all, of a historical nature. The initial location for the reserve, which was, 27, I think it was called, was never dedicated to council, and the question I'm asking, why didn't council pursue that reserve, which was right at the end of the cul-de-sac, which most of the people bought their houses in the knowledge that that reserve would remain as a reserve at the end of the cul-de-sac?
Through you, Madam Mayor, this application, like many subdivision applications, has been taken in stages. So stage one was finalised. The second stage, which includes the public open space, has not yet been finalised, and therefore the dedication hasn't occurred. So that dedication would only occur as part of the actual finalisation of the subdivision stage.
If I may just pursue it for a moment, Madam Mayor, I'm actually with Councillor Norris here, and I would request more information, because having visited the site a couple of times, the reserve where it is in a much more favourable position for the residents of Wells Place and the associated cul-de-sac. And their fear, if I could summarise it from the deputation and also from, well, both deputations really, from Rebecca and also Mark, is that the traffic would increase. There's no guarantee that there will just be 5 houses there in future. One of the lots is 3,000 metres, I think, and in future there could be 2 or 3 or 4. It could be subdivided. There could be another 4 houses there. So in future there could be not 5 houses, but maybe 10, maybe 12. There could be 5 in the perfect circumstances, which would increase the traffic minimally. But at the moment, and correct me if I'm wrong, the access to those potential new developments would be through Wells Place. And that is a huge concern from the people of Wells Place, because it is very thin. You can't park 2 cars either side of the road and get another one through. You certainly can't get 2 through. And so that excess traffic movement through there would, I think, be counterproductive. But in the essence of I guess fairness all round and the willingness of the deputy tonight, and also the willingness of the proponents too. There's a willingness there. They want development, and they also want to appease the neighbours. I see an all-round sort of thumbs up here. I don't see this as a lose-lose. I see it as a win-win, but I think perhaps if we could get together in the short term, I think a solution could be found quite easily.
Look, if I may, Mayor, I'm not sure, and I'd probably defer to the staff to advise on the timeframes that we're looking at here. But there is a risk. There are risks in deferring a decision, be it a decision for an approval or a refusal. I think Director Usher will probably understand what I'm alluding to, and I might ask you just to comment on that further.
Through you, Madam Mayor. I touched on one of the risks earlier, and that is the impact on our assessment timeframes, which are being closely monitored by the state government. The second is the potential for deemed refusal and therefore challenge the situation in Pure Land Environment Court. While I've got the opportunity, I might just clarify the comments that were made in regard to traffic. You need to remember that the current approval has, I think it's 4 of the 5 lights already accessing off Wells Place. So the impact on traffic and potential for dual occupancies and the like doesn't really change from what's currently in place to what's proposed under the amendment. We're talking about one additional residential lot gaining access off Wells Place and the reserve moving from Wells Place to the alternate road.
So before you go, Councillor Proudfoot, I'm just going to make a few comments on it. I support the refusal of this DA. We heard from both applicants, from the applicant and from the deputy for the community, that either way, they both support development on this site. They just don't support the move of the reserve. They know it's a small reserve there at the moment. I have concerns, and major concerns, that we are going to pick up a flood liable property. And then that comes back to council for our responsibility. It sounds all good. Oh yeah, we know it's going to be high level flood storage down on Shoalhaven Heads Road. But if we look at any flood that we have, there's a big mess to clean up afterwards. Quite a big mess. We've heard that the community out there are happy to do a park care group and maintain that little reserve that they have on behalf of council. They're not going to maintain double the size of a reserve on Shoalhaven City Council. That if we approve this, that will be increased costs to council, not only for flooding. I don't know how many times you've seen on the television, and I can tell you it horrifies me when I see it on the television, that where we have these high-level flood storage areas across the state, across the country, there's always a child that likes to play in it. There's always a child, and there have been many, that get sucked down a drain, and then we've got to have rescues out to try and find them. And I can tell you, if it goes down the drain, they'll be heading out to Shoalhaven River. So I have very high concerns that they are giving us a reserve that is going to have high maintenance cost for council, and it's got potential of high storage flooding that children can get into. We heard at the briefing about, this is all about the safety by design. All right, so let's have a look at the safety by design. One, high level flood storage, well, kids will play in it. That's the nature. And I don't want to be responsible for any accidents that happen in that high storage flood area. Secondly, there is no parking on Shoalhaven Heads Road where that is, where they're talking about the reserve. It is no parking. And the applicant deputy actually said, oh, well, council can just go and put a car park in there. Well, at whose cost? I'm trying to get car parks graded and updated across the whole of the Shoalhaven, and we have lots of them, and I can name a few. And yet they say, oh, well, council, you can have this reserve now. It's going to flood. You can go and put your car park in it. You can go and embellish it, whatever you want to do. However, we've got a perfectly good reserve that has been there for 40 years and used for 40 years by the people who live in that subdivision and surrounding areas. The other issue that I have on Shoalhaven Heads Road, or 2 more issues about the safety. At the moment, on the existing reserve, you can go, and it was all, if you've read all of the submissions, you will have picked up that they play soccer, there's no equipment in there, they play soccer, they play frisbee, they, have all different types of games, cricket, etc. in that reserve. And it's a community reserve. Let's move it down to Shoalhaven Heads Road. What happens is a ball goes out on the road? What's the normal instinct of a young child when their ball goes out onto the road? They chase it, they run after it, and we're allowing that to happen on a major road into Shoalhaven Heads if we change the reserve. The other thing is there is no access from Wells Place down onto Shoalhaven Heads Road through the existing site. So all those residents that use it and residents that use it up in Explorer Drive and all the rest around there, they have to walk around the block to get there. That's okay. However, if you read the application, the modification, council staff asked for a footpath on the northern side of Shoalhaven Heads Road leading down to this reserve. And the reply came back from the applicant, well, it's not in your PAMP, so we're not building it. So that means that children and their parents, etc., who want to go down to that reserve on Shoalhaven Heads Road will have to cross Shoalhaven Heads Road at the club. They will then proceed down the footpath and they will get down to, I'm not sure of the road, but goes there at the corner near the service station, and then cross back across the road to get into the reserve. Yes, there is an unformed footpath on the northern side, but I know when parents take their young children to the park or to a reserve to play in, they like their kids like to ride their bikes or they like to ride their scooters down to the reserve. So I have great concerns about the safety of children crossing the road, and I can see from Shoalhaven Heads community, because they're an active community, that they'll be on to council saying, council, can you please put crossings in on Shoalhaven Heads Road? We don't have the resources to put those crossings in at the present time. So I have real concerns about it. We had also Safer by Design about the crime. There's better surveillance on Shoalhaven Heads Road. Well, I don't know about too many people who drive, but when you drive, I don't think you drive looking out the window to see what's happening on the reserve. You get a quick glance and that's it. For 40 years, and under Safer by Design, one of the rules is that they say that existing previous territorial reinforcement by residents is one of the best things for Safer by Design. There are no residents down there. Tall Timbers closes at, I think, 7 o'clock, so there's no passive surveillance after business hours anywhere down on Shoalhaven Heads Road. But up in Wells Place, there is a number of houses and people who are looking at that all the time. I know that they said, oh, well, they're going to put colour-bond fences and close the reserve in. Well, I can go into plenty of reserves that council own and find there's colour-bond fences surrounding those reserves. So I think it should be refused on those things. There will be a loss of amenity. The roads, you've got to remember Wells Place was designed 40 years ago, and yet they want to move it. So there's traffic. We had no traffic study. We had no flood study. Yes, we may not have been able to ask for those documents because it's an old DA, but we have to look at today and we have to look at what the implications will be on moving that reserve, because that is actually the question. The question is, because they're still, either way, and the applicant told us that they'll just do the existing DA. The community told us, the residents told us, they're happy with the existing DA, we just don't want the reserve moved. So I think it's come to an impasse, and council need to look at what the real issues will be, and I've outlined will be flooding, will be increased costs for council. We have just been to Colborough, and we've had a big issue out at Colborough about cleaning out the drains, etc., with flooding. So when this starts flooding as a high hazard flood area, then we're going to be told, council, get out here and improve it. So that's just adding costs to council. There is nothing wrong with the DA, the current DA. They all agree with that. It's only the reserve. So I think that and we've been told here tonight, if we don't approve it, they will just build the existing design. So nobody's out, but if we move that reserve, we're increasing the risk of safety of children, and we are going against the community that have lived there for over 40 years. Councillor Proudfoot.
Thank you, Chair. With reference to point 2 on the screen, staff had a problem with the flooding aspect there. How can we tidy that up to the satisfaction of staff? If Councillor Clancy is willing to have it tidied up.
Sorry, tidied up in terms of making it more defendable, or
making it more defendable.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'll defer to Director Usher, but I think as it reads is probably as strong as the council could put it. Again, the staff will be conflicted in this because they've effectively drafted a report that gives an outcome of approval with conditions. The reasons that are on screen are based around what I might term adequate planning grounds and reference to the Act. I think that's about as strong as councillors you could get these reasons at this point.
Could we put the word changed in front of the preceding flooding? Impact as a result of change, flooding impacts on neighbouring.
I would, as raw as I am, and having not been involved in the assessment itself, councillors, the better you can reference the planning grounds and the broader you can leave it will mean in the event of an appeal, the team can effectively draw the best reasoning possible. My advice would be to leave, if council is of the appetite to refuse this, and again, I'm rude to say this with the applicant sitting in the room, but I know Beck understands. The broader you can leave it, the better chance staff have of defending this in the event of an appeal. So I would leave them as is, councillors.
Councillor Proudfoot.
Director Usher, no.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I agree with what the CEO just said.
I thought you might say
that. So, Councillor Clancy, do you have a question, or are you looking for right of reply? So is everybody finished with questions and speaking for and against? All right, so I'll go to right of reply, Councillor Clancy.
Well, since everyone else did decide to have their 2 bobs worth, I didn't get to have put in all the detail that I wanted to because I was doing that in the interest of time. But just in regards to point 2 and that flooding, that actually having the reserve in a better position than the proposed reserve in regards to flooding, what that will do is it will allow the developer to progress the development. So that's why it's at a disadvantage, and that's what they're saying in here is that preceding development may have an adverse social or economic impact as a result of flooding impacts on neighbouring properties. They're going to allow the development to advance if they continue to if they go with that. So, but what I also wanted to do is just to say a few other words here, because the community have put so much time into this, and they're very passionate about this. And as the Mayor rightly said, there are a lot of safety concerns around moving this reserve, and it's not about. It's about the identity of the area as well, and as the Mayor said, there'll be increased maintenance costs. The safety concerns that she was talking about. I don't want to access footpaths and the requirement to cross at the Shoalhaven Heads Bowling Club and then back at the proposed reserve. So you've got to go across where the bowling club is, across the main road and then back again, with no footpaths or no crossings available for the pedestrians. The traffic and infrastructure impacts are actually really significant. As we've heard, Wells Place is only 3 cars wide, which is inadequate for anything future high density development that we could potentially see. So that could be 30 to 40 townhouses accessing this narrow street, which is about, that's up to 40 to 60 additional vehicle movements a day. If the developers sink their teeth into it and we don't watch what we're doing, this is a potential to occur down there. You can shake your head all you want. I'm just saying that today I was a little bit rattled actually, because I have been working with the community and I have spoken with the community a lot on this, and all of a sudden I'm hearing if I say certain things on the floor of council, I could be held liable at the Land and Environment Court. And I don't feel that I've been adequately briefed in or trained. I don't feel confident enough to say what I really want to say about this proposal because I've been told that I could end up in Land and Environment Court. So I reached out to staff and they have assisted me in drafting this. So to Councillor Proudfoot, I think staff are correct. We should probably just stick, or we will stay with option 2 if that's okay with you. And I just hope that everybody understands the significance of this and that it's been quite a difficult process to get to this point, and that we make a decision tonight, please.
Thank you. So we'll use the little buzzers, the device. So we're voting for refusal. No, the refusal. So the vote, so are we all right? It's changing. So this is to refuse the modification application.
And then to refuse it, you press the green.
That's right. 2 against. So I declare that the refusal is carried from all councillors. The 2 that voted against were Councillor Dunn and Councillor Christolitis.
I on the council, truth to